Okay, welcome everybody to this meeting of the Environment and Climate Change Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I'm Ewan Walters, Senior Democratic Services Officer. This meeting is being webcast live to the public on YouTube, so please turn your microphones on when you're speaking and turn off when you've finished. We've received apologies for today's meeting from Mr. Pendleton, Mr. Frisbee and Mrs. Page. And substituting for them today, we have Mr. Dan Harrison, Mr. Lovegrove, and Mrs. Amanda Wright. So welcome to you all. So as we don't have the normal chair and deputy chair, the first agenda item is election of chairman just for today's meeting. Are there any nominations for chair? Mr. Harrison?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Councillor Chapman.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for Mr. Chapman? Thank you. And are there any other nominations for chair today? No, okay. Everybody in favour of Mr. Chapman being elected chair for today? Thank you very much. Everybody happy with that? Okay, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Chapman, and I'll hand over to you for the rest of the meeting.
Thank you for that. So that takes on to agenda item 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of January, 2023. Can I propose the minutes of the meeting held on 9th of January 2023 are taken as read, confirmed and signed? All in favour? Thank you. Agenda item 3, question time. I've received no questions from the public. Agenda item 4, questions asked by members under standing orders 7(3) and 7(5). I have received no questions from members. Agenda item 5, to advise of any other items which the chairman has decided to take as urgent elsewhere on the agenda. There are no urgent items. Agenda item 6, declarations of interest in respect to items on the agenda. I invite members who wish to do so to make a declaration of interest in respect of items on the agenda for this meeting. Is there any? None. Thank you very much. Agenda item 7, declarations of the party whip in accordance with overview and scrutiny procedure rule 16. Are there any declarations of the party whip? None. Thank you very much. Presentations of petitions under standing order 35. I have not received any petitions at this time. So straight to agenda item 9, value of trees on the highway toolkit. This report is going to be presented by Anne Carruthers, Director of Environmental and Transport, and she's supported by Andy Jackson, Special Products Officer. So if I may now hand over to you, please. Thank you.
We'll try. Sorry, plan B, here we are. Thank you. Good afternoon all. This piece of work we've carried out in partnership with ADEPT. ADEPT is the Association of Directors of Economy, Environment, Planning and Transport, and it has been funded by the Rees Jeffreys Road Foundation. The objective of the toolkit that's been developed is to help local highway authorities in re-establishing trees as an important feature on highway verges and highway land. I think traditionally, and you'll probably be aware maybe that trees have not been encouraged from a highway perspective because often, there are maintenance liability and potentially, if vehicles impact them and, there's collisions, etc. However, and I think through this work, it's a useful toolkit that can show the multiple benefits of trees in the highway. So it's about re-establishing that importance and enabling highway authorities to make the right decisions about when and where to introduce trees. The toolkit's designed to help with species selection and location, so the right tree in the right place. It also provides a mechanism to value the lifetime costs and the environmental benefits that the trees can have there for the communities. So really to establish a business case to make that case for investment in trees. We're now looking at how we can integrate this work for us in Leicestershire. This was a pilot, and it was very much designed for Leicestershire. However, the Rhys Jeffreys Foundation and ADEPT are keen that it is rolled out nationally. So there's benefits for highways authorities across the country. But we're really keen to see how we can integrate that into our Leicestershire Highway Design Guide, and we're in process of reviewing and revising that. So it's exactly the right time to embed that in there, how we want to take it forward for Leicestershire. We also intend to work with the National Forest Company on a tree charter, which will help local authorities make use of the toolkit itself. I'm going to now just hand over to Andy Jackson, my colleague who project managed the work, to give you a wee bit more detail then on the toolkit itself. Andy, thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thanks, Ewan. Okay, yes, thanks. Anne, you've certainly given a pretty full resume of what the project's been involved with. So we've been working on this project for approximately 9 months after ADEPT approached us, and yes, so we now have the toolkit's been developed, and that has four parts to it, as you've already mentioned, the species selection matrix. So that's currently in the form of a spreadsheet that gives a number of different characteristics that you can select for a particular location. So that might be the sort of aesthetics of the tree, the type of leaf color, or the blossom, or the crown height, and that sort of thing. But it also gives you an opportunity to filter your species choice in terms of the ecosystem services they provide and the level of services that they provide. So that would be sort of carbon sequestration and storage, flood mitigation, and air pollution, reduction of air pollution. So those are the 4 key ecosystem services that the matrix sort of provides information on in terms of choosing the species that you want to deliver the service that you'd like to see. It also offers information about the tolerances of trees around, so being able to tolerate flooding, drought, that sort of thing. So it gives a really full picture of so if you've done your work and have sort of assessed your site, you can then use this matrix to make sure that you're selecting the right tree for those conditions and for whatever you want to deliver as part of the scheme. And yes, there were two parts in terms of the sort of cost of benefits. There's 2 sides to it. There's the monetary valuation of those 4 ecosystem services. So 150 species have been assessed for the sort of monetary valuation that the monetary sort of valuation they can provide across those four services across a 300-year period. So you can see what the cost benefits are in terms of the delivery of those services, and also an assessment on the flip side of it, an assessment of the lifetime costs of trees, right from procurement through to management and disposal. So it then gives you that balanced information, so you can make a decision about investment in trees within the highway. And there's a huge amount of work gone into some best practice guidance as well, so that internal design teams and third parties, if we embed it within the LHDG or through the tree charter work, can then they can then use that best practice, and we have some consistent guidance throughout the county. And I should add also, ADEPT are very keen to take this much wider than it currently is, and apply it through other authorities and organisations, take it across the country. So we've been spending a lot of time promoting the works, appearing at conferences and that sort of thing, to try and promote it more widely. And there's been a lot of interest in the toolkit. And there are huge benefits. Anne's mentioned a good deal of them, but primarily that the trees that we adopt are resilient and appropriate for the locations. So there are certainly comments from officers are that a lot of the time when we do adopt trees within the highway, they're not planted to appropriate standards. Quite often they're planted in unsuitable materials, and so when we do come to adopt them, they do become a maintenance liability, and this work will help avoid those instances and ensure that when we come to adopt them, we've got a quality tree that will thrive and survive throughout the period it's expected to. So yeah, I've already mentioned that it'd be a blueprint for tree planting and management, and give us a sound understanding of the costs and benefits so that we can make good decisions about investing in trees. And it reflects current policy and guidance in terms of changes to the national planning policy framework and design codes around beautiful trees and beautiful streets, and that should be tree lined. So it meets a lot of common sense, really good practice in terms of the benefits that it provides. So yeah, we're into stage 2 now. We're looking at potential schemes to deliver on the ground, including one looking at potential development sites that might incorporate the toolkit, as well as some internal schemes that are looking to be delivered in the coming financial year. So we're looking for feedback from colleagues, and also much wider than that from other organisations. We've done a lot of work with developers and with environmental organisations to look at this. So we've done a heck of a lot of work in quite a short period. There's more to do, and I'm sure it'll be something that will develop as we go forward and get that feedback. I've put the broad schedule within the information. Resource-wise, the forthcoming work will be managed internally, but the funding for a potential software package that we're looking to bring out that third parties could use, we're still investigating options around that. And I guess in the bigger picture point of view, it should help better manage budgets in relation to adopted tree maintenance in the future. And I think that's about it. And yeah, that's a sort of summary of where we're at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, both of you. Do members have any questions regarding this? Mr. Harrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I most certainly welcome the report. I think it's first class. I think we've had 2 wonderful explanations of it. But I think page 18, paragraph 8 really jumped out at me when you look at the carbon storage advantage, reduced air pollution and flooding. I mean, it's absolutely magnificent. Obviously, I'm really pleased to hear that there's a real insight into how it's all going to be managed and the future of it. I mean, lots of trees you find historically are too close to the curb or the roadside. And so we're forever maintenance and having all issues. But if we're now going to look at it, what sort of leaf, how far back, so you'll know the width of the tree, so that won't be an issue or a problem. This will help cut down some of the maintenance, because a lot of our maintenance is managing the size of the trees when they start, they grow out onto the road, and you travel some roads and you'll see trees that have got like a bit of an arch because the lorries have gone underneath them and all sorts. So that, I think, would be superb. So I wish you the very best of luck. This is a fantastic initiative. It's the sort of things that I think we all ought to embrace and be proud to be able to embrace this. This is really part of the culture that we're driving forward. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Harrison Rushton?
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered if you could expand a bit on how we're taking into different route systems into the selection tool and matrix in regards to whether they're wide routes, deep routes, and so we're managing the impact that might have on highways infrastructure and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to come back on that one? And
did you want me
Andy,
to?
yes,
Did you want me to
Andy.
pick that one up? So there's already a lot of guidance that we've got around street trees, particularly as they can interfere with sort of underground services and also neighbouring assets such as the carriageway and footpath. So there's a good deal of sort of best practice information around there. What we've done within the guidance within the report is suggest for particular locations specific types of planting systems that are suitable for those locations, for hard landscaping, and then just regular roadside verges, and certain, they've got the skeleton planting systems, crate planting systems that are suitable for planting within hard areas, sort of, so that we reduce the disturbance to the sort of adjacent assets. So that's encompassed within the current guidance. And one of the things that we're sort of looking at the moment is the potential for including that within the matrix, so that when you're making your selection for your trees, that can be part of that assessment. But currently we have those sort of different planting scenarios and within the current guidance that explains how we should be planting trees to ensure that they don't interfere with neighbouring assets.
you happy with that, Mr. Rushton? Thank you. Mr. Bolter.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we're establishing a tree nursery. Are we going to grow the species in the tree nursery that we're going to use on the highways, or how are the two going to be related at all? I hope they are. No point in growing trees if we're not going to use them.
Oh, absolutely. I'll come in, and then if Andy has any additional information on that. But they are two different projects. But absolutely, we're looking at the tree nursery as part of our wider commitment, isn't it? In terms of planting out 700,000 trees across the county. So that is about literally feeding that requirement. So when we're looking at trees that will go on the highway, very much we'll use this matrix, this toolkit, and that will then, those conversations will then enable us to ensure that we're planting the right things, and that's coming through the nursery system in terms of what we're developing out through that.
And that's indeed good practice as well, to grow your trees locally so that you know where your stock has come from. You reduce the risk of diseases, pests and diseases, by growing your stock locally, and ensuring that you're comfortable with where those trees have come from and have been grown in the right manner and all the rest of it.
That's your question, Mr. Bolter.
Yes, Party Chair, yes. What about as we've got a change in environment, other the British national species now are perhaps not suitable for planting. Are we going to look at other foreign varieties that we might have to grow because of climate change? Or are we going to stick to our normal species that are grown in hotter climates?
Did you want me to come in there, Anne?
Yes, you go, Andy.
So yes, we are looking at a range of species, and those that are included on the matrix include a sort of a huge, about 150 different species, a lot of which are suitable for planting along the highway, the majority of which others will be suitable for the more adjacent near to the highway. But there's a great selection of trees that aren't necessarily currently common to Leicestershire, but will be suitable going forward. And I think one of the concerns that's been raised at the moment is that we've got 4 main species that we're very reliant on in the county, and they make up 31% of the total population of trees. So if you get a disease like ash dieback, which then impacts on that, it has a huge effect on tree populations locally, and it's a bit of a worry when you're so dependent on such a low number in terms of different species of trees. So yeah, that is something that's built into the toolkit.
Can I just add one other point? And I think, well, it would be another challenge for this toolkit as well. It's how it keeps evolving, keeps up to date, you know, with that specialist knowledge as it progresses. Because as we all know, life moves on, doesn't it? And we learn new things. Therefore, you know, there'll be more expertise and knowledge around species and what might be suitable. So I think it's a challenge for this toolkit as well as to how it manages to keep up to date with that.
Thank you. We've got the last two questions on this. Mr. Hunt first, then Mr. Lovegrove. Thank you.
Right. So all power to the department that's doing this, for whom I have a great regard. They do a fantastic job. A couple of detailed things. When I think of trees along highways, I think of country roads because we do, but you also have a responsibility on residential streets where it's appropriate. And sometimes I feel that the district authority isn't quite working in tandem with the aspirations of county highways have to look after the trees. So that's one of the concerns I have. The other concern, and I'm sure we're addressing that, but it is important to remember it. The other concern is we're talking largely about tarmac roads here now. The authority is very keen to extend cycleways and improve conditions for pedestrians. And very frequently, and I'll give you an example, Watermead Park, anyway, the cycle route through Watermead Park, which goes right into the city. It was built for that purpose. And yet there are trees along that route kicking up, as Mr. Rushton pointed out, tree roots, which are at best really annoying and at worst can be quite dangerous. I've reported one along that route about 3 years ago, and it's treated as a byway, or what's the word? As a bridleway, I think. Nothing's been done about it, and the response I had back was basically, well, there are only routes. And I think anybody who's cycled along there, any other route, knows that cycle routes can be enormously irritating at best. So I wondered what our policy was regarding cycleways, particularly where it is a county-sponsored scheme. Thanks.
Well, I'll start, and then if Andy's got anything to add to it. I mean, I think the example you give there is probably encapsulates exactly why the traditional view from highways has been very much let's try and steer clear of trees. But as you can see from this report, the value of trees, which we haven't appreciated 10, 20 years ago, etc., is much, much wider than just thinking about things like the impact on a footway from routes, etc. However, I mean, I think what we're looking at, something like this toolkit, to make sure that where we are putting in trees and how we put them in and the species we put in and the way it's planted, etc., is going to minimise that potential for happening in future. It doesn't address the existing issues like the one you've just mentioned there, but it's about making sure we're not building those problems in the future, given that we know that there is much wider benefits from trees. So a simple blanket, we're not supporting trees in highway land, isn't really appropriate anymore. So it's about trying to avoid that because we're picking the right locations, we're doing it within the right vicinity or distance, etc. And we've thought about the routes and the route impact and how we plant it, as Andy said, a cage type thing, etc. We've covered all that to try and minimise that happening in future. So it's about trying to get that balance because, as you quite rightly say there, I've just illustrated, there's an awful lot of demands and requirements on the highways and things we're trying to provide for, be it a cyclist, be it a pedestrian, be it a car, be it a bus, be it the environmental things, be it stopping the impacts of flooding, etc., etc. And it's trying to get that balance. But I think this toolkit is a good way for us to really start to understand how we do that with trees in the highway environment.
Yes, Chair, I understand what the report's saying, but my question was, twofold. One, are we cooperating with district councils in their landscape plans through planning? And secondly, what are we doing about cycleways and pedestrian routes?
I think the cycleways has just been answered, to be honest with you. So it's just the district one. She pointed out that they'll be doing the same tree plant with the toolkit. We'll be doing the same for cycleways and everything. If that's correct.
Just to check, if Mr. Hunt's checking, I mean, in terms of what we're doing for new cycleways or for existing cycleways for putting, I wasn't quite sure about. It does include all highways, obviously, and it's about planting appropriately close to those facilities, be it a footway, be it a cycleway, be it a carriageway, be it an urban area or a rural area, that when we are planting, if we deem it appropriate, that we're doing it in the best ways possible. So it's not excluding anything in terms of highway, but it's doing it in the appropriate way if we deem it's possible. It may be a case in an urban scenario where there just isn't the width of the ability to put trees in anywhere. You've got your traditional carriageway, you've got your traditional footway, you've got a built up area. There isn't an opportunity to do it, but it doesn't exclude any type of highway. In terms of the landscaping and working with districts, unless Andy's got any more detailed information on that specifically, because trees, I imagine that's something that we'll have to pick up with them in a kind of new environment more than the traditional ways we've interacted with them, be that via street cleansing, etc. You know, because it gets down to the basics sometimes like that in terms of the maintenance allocation, the maintenance around these things. But you know, again, if we are, and it's very much. As Andy mentioned, you know, the reference to beautiful places is the government's planning policy, and it's very much around creating beautiful places. So trees is one part of that. So the planning authority have a major stake in that. We're trying to do our bit around it. So we're going to have to work in tandem in this kind of new environment about how we liaise better to make sure that we are delivering on that. So I'm not saying we've cracked it, but yes, we're going to have those interactions to make sure that we're maximising the opportunities for our communities.
Thank you for that. Just a question for Mr. Lovegrove, then it would be Mr. Payne, just to finish off on this subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. It's a quick question, really. A fantastic positive initiative, which will be an investment for Leicestershire's future, and a tree covering across the county will be absolutely fantastic. So nothing but positive praise for the officers who have worked on this. A tremendous initiative. And there's hope climate change doesn't go to the point where it's putting palm trees in. But it's an investment from Leicestershire County Council, and I did read that it could be adapted across the country. Would that be a free giveaway, or might the financial return be to Leicestershire? Thank you.
We have invested officer time, etc. However, the main works were funded by the Rhys Jeffreys Road Foundation. So to be fair, you know, it wasn't just our investment, and hence that's why, you know, I think we'd be absolutely more than supportive to roll it out and support, you know, other authorities nationally.
Thank you. Mr. Payne, if you'd like to come back for the last comments on this one, please.
Yeah, it's on.
Had to pass the parcel, it's past the microphone. I just want to thank the panel for embracing the policy, but also recognising the innovation. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, when we set about planting a tree for every citizen of Leicestershire, 700,000 trees, and members will recall prior to that we have a programme to deal with the ash dieback disease as well, and we set aside some large amounts of money in order to do that. But about a year and a half ago, when we set the ambition, the system, as you can see, set about how can we embrace this, how can we look at new ways of supporting this ambition in the agenda. And I have to pay tribute to our director, who is actually a member of ADEPT, for getting ADEPT to approach the council to lead and innovate in this area. Clearly, they feel, many of the national organisations feel, that there's a gap in knowledge when it comes to the value of trees, where they're planted, which trees suffer from which diseases, the cost of trees moving forward. And it's really pleasing to see not only us embracing the plant a tree for every citizen agenda, but also finding ways to support that and improving our built environment and our general environment for years and years to come. The only other thing I would say, just in response to 2 points that have been made, one is about the tree nursery, and I had the pleasure of visiting the site, Hanging Hill Farm in Moira, last week. And one of the things I learnt whilst up there is actually the biosecurity will be much improved. So we have suffered from diseased trees in Leicestershire. By trialling a programme where we can sow these seeds and germinate them from a very young age in the locality, I'm told will improve our biosecurity. So hopefully the species that are relevant to Leicestershire can be grown at that particular nursery. And I look forward to seeing how the pilot yields in a couple of years' time. The second thing about working with our planning authority colleagues, what I'd say about that is when we launched the programme, we have a tree totaliser on our tree website, and I took a look at it the other day and I noticed it hadn't been updated since middle of last year. And when I dug into why that was so, I understand there's a single individual responsible for updating the data they receive, and it's quite time intensive. What I'd love to see is even closer working with our planning and borough district councils to try and somehow capture that data so it automatically feeds in. And I think this piece of work around the value of trees may well help that endeavour. But we're on a journey here, and no one's suggesting that this is going to be the panacea and, you know, in a few months' time, we're going to wake up to a different landscape within Leicestershire, but we're trying to put the toolkit and the programmes together to be able to deliver a very ambitious agenda. And my final point, if I can, in the 1930s, gross domestic product was measured by fixed assets alone. In the 1980s, they added intangible assets. I reckon in the future, natural capital will be added to the computation of gross domestic product. So Leicestershire County Council and what we're doing here on the tree programme and the environment agenda, I think is at least on the curve, if not ahead of the curve, because I think being able to value the asset of trees will be immensely important moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to say thank you to Anne and Andy for that report. I think it's a very positive report with us going forward, and thank you for picking up on those last points, Mr. Payne. So I'll now carry on to agenda item 10, persistent organic pollutants in waste upholstered seating. Joe Gill's going to bring on, that's a mouthful, that one is. Jan Gill to present this one, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. You've done half my job explaining the acronyms at the top of the report. So the report, which is from page 23 in your pack, sets out the latest position on POPs in waste upholstered domestic seating, or woods, which is what I'm going to call it from now on, and the implications for the County Council. So in the background of the report, it explains what POPs are, the legislative history on the issue, and it explains why, due to the harmful risk to health, that there's now an international agreement where the UK has to now manage any waste containing POPs in a way that prevents those harmful impacts. And in August of last year, the Environment Agency disclosed some investigative findings that they'd undertaken, which showed that POPs are present in large quantities in woods. So things like sofas, armchairs, seating, cushions, those kinds of things. So for the County Council as a disposal authority, the issue is really one of treatment and disposal, as these wastes now have to be incinerated and not landfilled. And in the majority of bulky waste, which would have included POPs and woods, that comes in through our recycling house or waste sites, or equally that the district councils collect through their bulky collections, it went to landfill in mixed loads. So it requires change to how these wastes are managed going forward. Timing is also a challenge, not just for the County Council, but I would say for the treatment providers and industry themselves, as enforcement started just on the 1st of January this year. However, the regulatory position which sets out things like how you have to store this material, segregate it, compact it, etc. That was only issued on the 19th of December last year. So in terms, I think, of where things are currently and in the impact on services, the short notice from the Environment Agency and the lack of outlets for things like shredding, etc., it means it's really challenging for us to be able to comply with the regulations. The County Council has got a temporary arrangement with an existing contractor, but I think it's fair to say that that's fairly fragile. The market is incredibly nervous because there's a risk. So there's a risk to us, I think, that they will cease that arrangement with little or no notice. And also the treatment price is much higher. I will add, it's not a Leicestershire problem, it's a national problem, and it's a national capacity issue. So I think the nub of it is I can't guarantee that we'll have enough contractual capacity going forward because we only have very limited data. The data that we had was mixed bulky waste. We don't know how much of that mixed bulky waste will be made up of this specific waste stream. So on the ground, this translates to a limited service offer at some of the recycling household waste sites and through our transfer stations, as well as changes to our compaction arrangements. And I think that's covered or expanded on from sort of 18 to 23 in your report, which sites are affected, etc. We're also currently not accepting woods from our trade customers and from charities. We've had to suspend that just to prioritise our own operations. And the districts have also had to change their bulky collections. And I think one district is still currently suspended. I think I've got it in the report. I think it's Charnwood, so they are not currently offering bulky collections. And obviously we've done a lot around signage. We're looking at that, comms, etc. That's all being undertaken. In respect of resource implications, I think we anticipate a threefold cost increase could be likely. So somewhere of the magnitude of £500,000 to 1.25 million yearly growth pressure due to haulage, treatment changes, etc. We don't anticipate government funding to cover that increased cost, and it's not currently budgeted for in the MTFS. But as officers, we did highlight that risk, and we will now be looking to try and calculate the scale of that risk in real terms, but we've only had data started since January, so we'll be working on that. There's also a secondary financial risk or impact on the County Council's trade waste income because we've ceased some of that, as well as a risk to of receiving more material in the future, because if we have things like retailers that, you know, buy a new sofa, will take back your old one, if they start to cease some of those take back schemes, we could see there's an increased amount of this material coming to the County Council's infrastructure. I think so in terms of summing up, POPs and the management of woods represents an ongoing emerging operational and financial issue for the council that Scrutiny is asked to note, and absolutely happy to take questions, but I just thought I'd mention at this point that I've asked Nigel Shilton to join the meeting, so he is on the call as well. He's my head of service for waste management delivery, so has been trying to deal with the contractors, etc. And between us, we'll happily try and answer any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that report. So we've gone from the good report to the bad report by all accounts. Very, very bad report by the looks of it. So, Mr. Harrison, you have a question, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it's not a good report, but it is well put together and well presented in full detail. So there's no saying we don't know, we're not aware. We are fully aware this is a very serious situation. I don't think there's any quick answer to this, but I have looked at this and sat down and thought, well, if you're going to be paying 1.25 million, which is a low figure now, when I heard you speak just now, you know, it's sort of gone up. But I mean, in 5 years, that would be 6.25 million. Now, it beggars the question, should we not be talking to government and saying, look, we probably need to find an area and put our own furnace on it and be able to deal with this, because what you're talking about, loss of income, could eventually end up as quite a powerful income, because there's a massive amount of this product out there, and unless all these manufacturers have stopped overnight producing settees in the way that they have previously, it's going to go on for a long time. So there's going to be an urgent need, and I just wonder whether sort of walking over that bridge, it sounds impossible, but I mean, I've heard comments in the past when we did away with all our homes and things, and people said, well, perhaps we should reinvent having our own homes again, simply because of the cost implications. So it would be something that I think is very, very well worth just looking at it from economics point of view, because when we're vulnerable and the market knows that we're essential providers, because we pick it all up, and if we stop it at sites, I dread what's going to happen to the countryside. I mean, it's pretty full-time scale now with some of the terrible stuff that's been just thrown out. And we don't mean cans, we do mean furniture of all descriptions. So it's got to be a little bit of work that's got to be really well worth looking at, because the future's in front of us, but it doesn't look too good unless there's going to be a magic wand somewhere. We've got to face reality. We will be a prisoner, and the longer we leave this, obviously our ability then to probably harness anything. So if we could quietly look at how that could work, a feasibility on land we may have, who knows? But it's an idea. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Would you like to come back on that, Joe?
It's a big question. And again, Nigel's on the call and he may have an observation. I think the point I would make is the county council manages, let's say, overall 150, 160,000 tonnes of residual waste. You know, we have composting, recycling, etc. It takes a minimum of 7 years, probably realistically, to, even if you have a site, to get planning permission for a site of this sort of magnitude. If you're talking about sort of a thermal treatment and incineration facility. We're aware of the facility that's just been built at Junction 23 by the private sector. It took a lot longer to realise that build, and that's not unusual. You know, there are often objections to them for lots of reasons. They're a big piece of infrastructure. And you're talking £400 million to build one. They're not insubstantial investments. I'm not sure Mr. Tambini or the Director of Corporate Resources was ready for me to go with that suggestion. However, that aside, what I can say, and it's not necessarily directly linked to this report, but the County Council has already committed through its disposal authority function that we currently have arrangements in effect that are merchanting with the market. So we have arrangements for all of our residual waste to go to the market to get the best price, whether it's for recyclables or residual waste, landfill, incineration, etc. And we have in effect a basket of measures that gives us resilience if one facility goes down. But that doesn't discount the fact that we still have in the long term an ambition to do some investigative works about what is our approach to managing residual waste or waste in the longer term. And we're talking, you know, these facilities are 40 years at least minimum in terms of their life expectancy. And we have arrangements in place at least to 2030 something at the moment. So long term, it's something that we look at and go, when those contracts are due to come to an end, is there an alternative way to do that? And we are exploring that in outline now, because we're aware it can take 10 plus years to do that. But I think that's a separate report that through the director we would look to bring back. But this is a very small fraction of that marketplace, but I accept that it's an important one. But it's almost just to reassure Scrutiny that we are still considering what do we do in terms of should we do a complete channel shift in how we manage waste. But the magnitude of the investment is substantial. Just thought I'd share that.
To come back on that, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I am familiar with that site and that huge chimney, and I've watched it being built over a long period of time. I was thinking of something probably not on that scale. I mean, that is a large industrial. You know, you're going to have 100, 200 lorries a day going in there. It's huge. I was thinking a little bit more conservative, so probably half or less of that sort of bill to mainly look after ourselves, but then be available to pick up contract work from other people to be able to make the viability and the profitability of the whole thing. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Bolter, I'll have a question myself.
Thank you. Yeah, interesting report, something new to us. It's a pity it took so long to get this far, but we are where we are. Right. Have we got sufficient storage for these items at the present time? If you're picking them up and haven't got capacity to dispose of them, have we got some storage for these items and how much will it hold? Is it the material for the fire retardant bit that causes the problem? These materials? I suspect that it is. And if you cast your minds back, we used to have furniture made from different cloths, which caused major problems if it caught fire, giving off certain poisonous gases. That's now been rectified. So what is the government doing about the furniture manufacturers to make sure they're not still producing products that are going to cause pollutants in the future? I know it's a long way down the line, it's a long way to ease it out of the system, but the sooner we stopping making these things with these chemicals, the better. So I'm thinking about maybe grandchildren or great-grandchildren further down the line that will have this problem. So is there anything the government's doing about that at all?
I think Mr. Payne wants to come back on this first.
Yeah, Joe might want to pick up some of the technical information, but I just want to come back predominantly on 2 points. The first, about the amount of time it's taken to bring a report about this issue, particularly to Scrutiny. Well, the EA only notified the council back in August last year. The department have been working tirelessly trying to find outlets for the materials and to deal with the issue, but it's only become apparent more recently that deadlines have been imposed, and obviously to comply and be a legal entity in the grand scheme of things, we're having to report the information now. But Mr. Bolter is right. The issue here is, what is the government doing about the regulations, because it's the regulations and that are having this effect on these particular waste items. And let's not forget, this is going to affect charities, those charities that collect furniture, etc. It's going to have a massive impact. This isn't just an impact upon the county council. This is going to have a massive national impact. And I've naturally asked the questions at lead member meetings about what we're doing to lobby government and ministers, etc. And I understand our local government association and other national bodies are actively involved as we speak in trying to sort this issue out. But Mr. Bolter is correct. The question should be put to the government. What are the government going to do? Because that would help us respond to this issue more locally.
I was asking the government, why did it take the government so long to come to this conclusion as a problem, not the officers?
Thank you, Mr. Bolter. Do you want to come back on the more technical points, Joe, please?
Thanks, Chair. I'm actually going to see if Nigel Shilton wants to come in on one of the points you made. I'll come back to it, but just on the sort of storage and how we're holding it and how we're moving things around the county, Nigel will be able to tell you what we've had to do in terms of extra containers and so on, so that we're not having some sort of huge storage mountain of material, I think is almost the question. But I'll bring Nigel in. Just on the fire retardant element, in case it just hasn't been clear, recognising absolutely, can we stop the production of things that then become a problem when they become a waste, and what the government's position or instructing manufacturers. Obviously, the issue that we're dealing with at the moment is, even if that change was immediate, we'll spend still the next 20 or 30 years having to process the material that does have POPs contained within it. So we'll still have to make provision for it, because it's still going to sort of be in the system for a period of decades. But Nigel, I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything on the sort of storage and how we're handling the material.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, in terms of how this has arisen, the level of these chemicals when they were put in the items weren't deemed POPs waste. So as part of it, Mr. Bolter is correct, it is part of the fire retardant, the match strike test regulations. So these have been added from approximately up till 2019 in items. However, there's no sort of guaranteed way without doing a kind of handheld radioactive X-ray scanner, which gives you a kind of isotope results back of determine accurately the levels or anything else, which is, to be honest, impractical. So these items, I think the best hope in the future is, as part of the 2018 waste strategy, was alluded to as a government producer-led take-back scheme for these items in the future. The government have indicated they would sort of consult on that in 2025. So in terms of a longer term solution, there would hopefully be a longer term solution, like we have a legal take back facility for televisions, fridges and other items that are waste electrical items at our sites. So there is some hope on the horizon. but initially these items were not known to be POPs and added to be waste at that point. So that is what has come about, and that's why we've got so much of these items out there. In terms of storage on sites, we're trying to make provision at the sites where we've got them, and trying to keep the waste moving in terms of minimising the amount of storage capacity. We could store it at one of our transfer stations, and we're making provision within the network to be able to accommodate should we have any short-term blips in supply.
Thank you. So I've just got one question. Is this product actually safe to be removed from sofas and stuff? Or is that process dangerous? If you actually, can you safely remove this from the sofas and just store the material on its own without having to store the whole original furniture item?
Nigel, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah, the problem is it's in the foam predominantly, and then it leaks into the covers, the foam and the covers. So actually getting the items off the sofas is quite a tricky thing, unless you've got like a wooden chair with a design removable seat. It's very difficult, and not one we'd sort of recommend if it requires cutting, tearing or damaging the items. So any items that's like got a removable seat, small removable seat or anything like that is fine, but we wouldn't want to recommend any kind of self removal of such items for people, because that could lead to escape of the POPs items in smaller quantities of foam, etc. That makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm just going to bring back, like I said, then, so this could actually be, and I've mentioned this yesterday, the new asbestos going forward then for us all. Is that correct?
I think it just through you, Chair. I think whether we use asbestos, I think the point is it's another example of where you don't want to be in effect breaking, smashing, breaking up this material, which does make it challenging because you can't identify, you're not sure if it's got labels on it or not, even if they did have a fire retardant label on them historically. So I think the challenge for us is we're having to almost use anything that is classed as a soft furnished seating, and it has to be classed as this material type. So for safety, it has to go in that, and we don't encourage people to start taking wooden legs off chairs, etc., just for that exact reason.
Thank you. Any further questions regarding this one? Mr. Payne.
Yeah, it is actually a genuine question I have, which I previously raised as a lead member meeting, but I think it will be important to air here. And I'm not going to delve into the answer because we have experts. It's aimed at Nigel. What are other countries doing about this, Nigel? Or does this just apply to UK sofas and goods?
It's the UK regulations are particularly in terms of the government legislation on their match strike regulations. They're the ones that require higher levels of fire retardancy than many of the European countries. So it is more of a particularly UK problem. It's good intentions in having high levels of fire prevention, but it's had these unfortunate consequences of the chemicals they're using. They didn't fully understand the persistent organic nature of those chemicals when they've applied them. So the chemicals have met the regulations, and we have much higher levels of these chemicals than in many of the other European countries, given the UK regulations that are in force for fire resistance. So it's a bit of an unfortunate occurrence of different factors that has led us where we are.
Thank you. Just to finish up on that, I just think it's something as a committee we might want to keep an eye on going forward, and just see whether we can get another report, a small report back in 6 months, to see how we're doing with the storage side and everything else, if that's not a problem at all, please.
Through you, Chair, I'm happy to put it on the forward plan. It might just be that there'll be an opportunity, 6 months if what Scrutiny wants, but I'm conscious that with the time lag on data, it might well take us the year, and then we'll have a far better understanding of the financial implications. So if we took a year's worth of data, but if something happened in the interim, we could discuss it at agenda planning and put it on and bring it forward. But it might be worth us just elongating that time frame slightly so we've got more data.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That takes us to agenda item 11, Environment and Climate Change Performance Report to December 2022. Anne Carruthers will present this report and supported by Nicola Truslove, the business partner. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, this is the quarterly performance report reporting data up to December last year. There's 27 indicators that we normally report on, and 20 of those have been updated this time for that quarter. 7 have improved, 7 have declined, and 6 have remained the same. I'm going to focus on, in pulling in the highlights, I'm going to focus on the 7 that have declined. However, more than happy to answer questions on any of the other ones as well at the end if members would like to raise those. So looking first at the percentage of people who feel protecting the environment is important, and the percentage who think the council should do more on this, that's changed. Both of those have changed marginally. For instance, previously 62% thought we should do more for the environment in terms of protecting it, and that's increased to 65%. Perhaps that's reflecting increasing public awareness around this whole agenda, so it'll just be interesting to see how that keeps tracking over the quarters. And it comes from, just as a reminder, it comes from a survey of 1,600 people, and it uses a 12-month rolling results on that. If we look at the percentage of household waste sent for reuse, recycling and composting, that's declined from 43 to 42%. And the tonnes of waste from the LCC sites has increased from 59.7 to 60.7. So it's increased by 1 tonne, likely reflecting, more people going back to the office, more staff returning to the offices, etc., getting up to, more pre-pandemic levels there. In terms of that first one, the household waste, we are looking towards actions with our district partners under the resources and waste strategy, and the committee will remember we brought you that, and it's going through the approval processes both here and with the district authorities. But we very much are looking for actions under that to help with things like, the percentage of household waste reused, recycled, etc. Moving on then, just before I move from the waste ones, however, it's probably worth just noting that the total household waste per household has reduced this quarter. It's gone from 1,014 kilograms to 1,000 kilograms. So, some positive news on that front, let's put it like that. Renewable energy generated in the area is reduced by 11%. That we feel has been affected by changing national statistics, meaning that actually some of the energy types and the reporting, the data on that has been suppressed, if you can even see it. So that suppresses the end figure there. So in some ways that may be the reason behind that reduction we're seeing. And details of that's quite technical, but in paragraph 27 of the report. If we look at air pollution, PM 2.5, fine particulate matter, that's increased slightly from 7 to 7.5, and total LCC greenhouse gas emissions increased, and that's gone from just over 9,000 tonnes to just over 10,000 tonnes. Again, likely impacted by continued move back to business as usual after the pandemic. Worth noting, however, overall emissions are still 13% lower than pre-pandemic levels. The only other thing I will cover is we have 2 new indicators in there, KPIs for the eagle-eyed among you. If you look at the dashboard at the end of the appendix to the report, and they're both around better managing council land for nature. That land, just as a reminder, covers our farms, country parks, as well as suitable highway verges. And, you see we've just got some data in there. That'll start our baseline for future monitoring there. So, just to highlight that to you, 2 new KPIs there. I'll conclude there, but happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Any members have any questions? Thank you, Mr. Bolter.
Yes, thanks, Chair. In the report, it says that County Council performs below average on 9 indicators. What are we doing about that?
It's a very direct question, isn't it? We have, I mean, the below average are the ones that are in the third and the fourth quartile. So you'll be able to pick them out. But equally, as you can see, they're across a whole different host of different things, be it emissions, be it energy, be it waste, etc. And what I would say for each of those, some of those are within our own remit, like for instance, waste produced at our own sites, etc. And some of them, as you'll appreciate, are much more wider county things that are not only within our remit. There, as I say, there's a variety of things we're doing. For instance, like the waste ones, we're working with the districts through that resources and waste strategy and the action plan with that to drive the indicators in the right direction. For some of the wider ones around emissions, etc., we have got a whole host of activities and things going on, be it things like looking at how we're dealing with transport in the future, LTP that will come forward, and how we're dealing with reducing emissions from transport, etc. There's a whole host of different things we're doing. Some of those will come under the work for our net zero action plan and strategy. Some of it will come under that. And again, you know, a whole host of different organisations across the county will have a role in helping us drive those indicators the right way. So there's no one simple a very short question, but there's not a short answer, because there's a whole range of different things, either ourselves driving them with partners or the wider county, including things like the business sector, industry out there as well.
It doesn't make good reading, but I think we've just had an explanation twice. Some of it is Mr. Bolter. Right. Mr. Bolter. Mr. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm particularly pleased on page 38 to see the officer's report on particulate matter. It's something that I've been linked with for quite some time now, over a number of years. And you express it really well. It is exhaust, it is tyres, it is braking systems, and yet it is such a deadly product. Particulate matter just destroys the human body. Everybody used to think many years ago it was just to do with having chest and problems with lungs. It's far from it. It's very cancerous. The problem is, and we don't know how to resolve it, is that other people make these decisions, other councils, and some of them are probably better than others. But in the main, I don't get the feel a lot of them are particularly really in there hunting hard to get this right. I think it's a little bit of poacher come gamekeeper, because they're looking at building and development. And it won't be the first time I sit at a planning meeting elsewhere to be told there's no environmental report because they don't need it, because of this and that and 100 different reasons. So we have got a real problem. I would love the county to take over air pollution monitoring, because then it would be professional. There is a lot of really good equipment out there. The Zephyr's one that's very popular now, and it goes up in the air and it tells you everything, and you can, even members of the public can have links to it to find out how their air quality is doing that day. It is, but that's only the rare examples. It's not the common practice, and I just don't know how we can sort of do something that really is vital for the environment is air pollution. I know we've got electric, but then, you know, we've got 130,000 garages and you haven't got that many charging points. So it's going to be a long time before people are really happy and confident in all of that. So I don't know what the answer is, because the other people have that control, and yet we monitor it and show it to people. And I've shown other people reports from years ago from the transport committee, as it was, an environment previous time, and you know, they just dispute it's not true and it's not their report and everything else. So it's great to see it. I just wish we could publicise it, if not embarrass people, because DEFRA doesn't seem to be spot on, because really they have to do an annual status report, and you know, some of this stuff needs really nailing down because it's just not appropriate. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do you want to come back to that, Anne?
Just a couple of observations, if I could. You know, Mr. Hanson's absolutely right, and he's just highlighted how much a complex area this is and how many fingers are in the pie that contributes overall to the air quality we have out there. Now, partly, you know, the things causing emissions can be road transport, domestic, you know, it's our heating systems, it's industry. We've got an awful lot of aggregates industry in this county. We've got an East Midlands airport, you know, we've got things like that. So there's a lot of parties who are driving those figures, you know, as to what they are for Leicestershire. And in terms of how you deal with them, well, there's two main headlines, isn't there? There's one, behaviours. You know, how do we change behaviours when we know, you know, we should be doing, or we could be doing things differently to have better outcomes for air quality? And the other one's regulatory framework that we operate under, and those two have to come together. The one final point I would say is, yes, you're absolutely right. The district authorities have the statutory duty for monitoring air quality, and they have to report that to government, etc. But we do work with them, and we work with our public health colleagues as well, in order to, you know, understand the air quality issues around Leicestershire, and therefore what we can do where we have air quality management areas in place, but a very complex area and a very challenging one to really successfully drive change in.
Thank you. Mr. Hunt? You put your microphone on, please, Mr. Hunt.
Paragraph 30. And we collect the data from the districts, obviously, that's also been said. But does it include all sorts of sites? I'd particularly understood that the motorway system is not included in that. Is that right? And I think yeah, the other point I wanted to make was that it is very, I mean, it's expressed in that paragraph as well. It does vary quite dramatically from one place in the county to another. So if you're talking about urban areas, that's much higher than other areas. But I don't think it includes the motorway system, which is obviously a large contributor.
Can I come back to you on that? Can I clarify afterwards so I'm absolutely accurate? I mean, you're right, there's some of the indicators which, and I'm not sure, I don't think it's the motorway system. I think it's the rail network that I'm thinking of, and then I think the airport again. Because when I think about it, I know we have got air quality areas, management areas designated, particularly around the M1 and, you know, the boundaries of that in certain areas where it goes through urban areas. So my gut is motorways are in, but there's other things that are excluded. But if I could take it away and come back to be absolutely accurate, you know, the principle is there, some things are excluded.
Just come back on that. I do know that Blaby do have air monitoring at the motorway junctions and places, so I could back up. So Blaby do record that data from the motorway into their data.
The plant that has been referred to on the motorway is also a contributor, and so it's okay.
If we're confusing emissions per capita with the exclusions with the motorway and various other sort of forestry, that kind of thing. My information doesn't tell me of any exclusions about the motorways, but I will certainly double check that for you, Councillor.
Thank you very much. One last question there, Mr. Bolter.
Thank you. Going back through history, LTP1, which is a long while ago now, included air quality. And it was missed out. LPT2, I think there's a small mention on LPT3. And it's a major thing. Standing traffic causes a lot of air pollution. Is it in the new document going forward, whatever you want to call it? Will there be something there about air quality and standing traffic management? I mean, in my division, personally, you know, you've got bus stops that block the whole traffic, so traffic standing there, or passengers come and go off, and it causes major problems on the highway. but standing traffic, queuing traffic is a big difference.
Air quality has always been in our LTPs, the different versions, but equally there might be a different emphasis of it. LTP4 we will be developing through the course of this year. We're still waiting on DFT to put out their guidance for LTP, and they tell us it's soon, but they have been saying that for quite a wee while. So we will follow that. But bear in mind that the government's national policy is decarbonising transport. Air quality's got to come into it, so we'll feature, and at the end of the day, what we're trying to drive in terms of those that decarbonisation should have significant benefits for air quality as well.
You want to come back, Mr. Payne?
All I'll say, because this is a regular report that comes to the scrutiny panel for observation and comment, but it is reflective of a past that's just gone. The other thing I'd say is a dashboard intended to give us a heads up, an overview of what's happening out there in Leicestershire. And we are the Environment and Climate Change panel, and the indicators that are presented are intended to give us some data and information so we can make share off debates and thoughts in a holistic context. So to that extent, it'd be very easy to conjure up metrics that act as a whitewash that says the Leicestershire County Council are doing some great stuff and we're performing excellently in all of them. But it's also quite useful to have some data where we don't have the levers of control, but we still need to be aware of the impact some of those measures are having out there in Leicestershire. And I think this matrix actually does that, and that is very useful. Thanks.
Thank you. As there's no further questions, we shall move on to agenda item 12, which is the date of the next meeting. Next meeting of the committee is scheduled to take place on Wednesday, 17th of June at 2 p.m. in this room. So agenda item 13, any other items which the chairman has declared to be urgent? There are, as I stated earlier, there are no urgent items. So at this point, I'd just like to thank the officers for the 3 reports today, and members of the public can close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.